Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I am Ann Edwards, facilitator of the Cascades to Coats Landscape Collaborative, also known as the CCLC. We are a non-regulatory voluntary partnership that includes representatives from federal agencies like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Forest Service, NRCS, and USGS, tribes like the Yakima Nation, state agencies, both the Washington and the Oregon Departments of Fish and Wildlife, and Washington's Department of Natural Resources, and NGOs like Conservation Northwest. We have come together today to learn more about the Conservation Program Explorer tool, which we often call the CPE. We will learn what it is, how to use it, and how it is expanding to fill the niche of a one-stop shop for navigating the great diversity of voluntary incentive programs created and funded by the state, federal, and private organizations. I will note right now that despite the CCLC having a focus on the bioregion of Western Oregon and Washington, the popularity of the CPE has led partners to support the expansion of the CPE's geographic reach beyond these borders. Coverage for the CPE now includes all of Washington state, and with this launch today, Western Oregon. We are also on track to expand the CPE's reach to include all of Eastern Oregon. So you can see there's a lot of interest in this tool. But we are also here today to hear from you. As we walk through the CPE tool today, we encourage you to share your impressions and ask questions. There are lots of ways to improve this tool, and your input will enable those improvements to be relevant and useful. What insights can you share today that would make this tool more useful for you? We are also taking the opportunity presented by this webinar to encourage organizations and agencies to reach out to us as a potential CPE partner. We are actively looking for organizations to join us in delivering regional workshops for the CPE to engage more deeply with landowners and agencies and organizations that support landowners directly. As for our agenda today, I will start with a brief introduction to the CCLC as a landscape partnership and describe the process of landowner outreach that led to the building of the CPE tool. Then Rachel Santaolalla will take over to spend most of our time together today, walking us through the CPE tool and answering your questions. Rachel is our lead for the Conservation Program Explorer. She has been responsible for the build-out of the CPE tool across Washington state, and now for the build-out across Western Oregon. And she is a master networker and connects with the folks listed in the CPE tool and convenes the Conservation Program Explorer advisory groups from Washington and Oregon, composed of landowner-focused staff from a range of state, federal, and private entities. We are also fortunate to be joined today by one of the CPE's partner supporters, Nate Agislov. He is the incentives coordinator for the Oregon Department of Forestry. Nate has extensive experience working with private forest landowners on finding and utilizing incentive programs, and he has been an important voice on the Conservation Program Explorers Advisory Group for Oregon. Together, our presentations will take less than an hour, at which point we will open it up for questions and discussion. We ask now that you please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat box. Your name, your organization if you want, and where you are connecting from. Go ahead and do that now. Just to fill you in, we had over 100 people registered for today's webinar. Most folks are from Oregon and Washington, but others are joining us from Idaho, Montana, and California, and as far away as Delaware, DC, and Maine. We have a lot of private landowners registered, tree farm and ag producers, which is great. We also have representatives from federal and state agencies, land trusts, tribes, conservation NGOs, field research stations, OSU Extension, and multiple conservation districts from both Oregon and Washington. So welcome. We are pleased to see this diversity of engagement. Before we get to our presentations, I'm going to review a few webinar logistics. This is a Zoom webinar, not a Zoom meeting. The big difference is that you will not have access to your microphones or cameras. Instead, we ask that you take full advantage of two features, the chat and the Q&A. These buttons are at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you don't see them right away, go to the three dots icon and look for them there.
Anne, I
Yeah.
just want to interject really quick. The chat has been disabled, so while we would like folks to talk in the chat, we'll figure that out in the meantime. And so if you could use the Q&A function, we'll take your questions at the end, but feel free to put in commentary there as well, so we can talk about it later.
Okay. Okay. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. Here we are. All right. So let's see, Q&A. Okay, but the way to ask questions for the speakers is through the Q&A, and we strongly encourage you to do that. On that note, please jot your questions in the Q&A as soon as it occurs to you. Don't wait until the end, because this is a really important part of this webinar, is this back and forth. Caitlin Landfield is a science coordinator and communications expert with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and she will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. Hopefully we can fix the chat. And she will be relaying your questions to our speakers at the end of the presentations. Finally, I just wanted to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, and all those registered for the webinar will receive a link to the recording in a follow-up email. And it also will be available on the CCLC website. We encourage you to share it with friends and colleagues who are not able to join us today. Our goal is to grow the Conservation Program Explorer network. So let's get started. As our name suggests, the Cascades to Coast Landscape Collaborative was founded as a multi-partner platform to better understand and to advocate for the vast landscape that spans from the Cascade Mountains to the coastal ranges of Washington and Oregon. Our bioregion includes a great diversity of interconnected habitats, from the sandy shores and rocky headlands of the Pacific coast, to the headwater streams and lush forests of the highlands, to the mighty Lower Columbia River watershed with its multiple tributaries and estuary. As we are all aware, this large and connected landscape we call home is threatened by landscape scale forces. Land conversion fragments and degrades habitats, especially along roads and at the ever-expanding wildland-urban interface. And climate change affects habitats everywhere, shifting ranges and reshaping ecological communities, often in unpredictable ways. A fundamental principle of landscape collaboratives is that landscape-scale drivers, such as climate and conversion, require a landscape-scale response. Responding at a landscape scale must necessarily be inclusive. Therefore, a top defining principle for the CCLC is identifying shared values across the landscape. We identify shared values by convening regional workshops to bring together diverse voices, to identify priority shared actions. The Conservation Program Explorer is a great example of the CCLC identifying and supporting aligned, shared actions. When we look at a map of land ownership across Western Oregon and Washington, what really stands out is the diversity of landowners, each with individual land management priorities. There are large tracts of federal, state, and tribal lands managed for a range of conservation, cultural, and economic benefits. Yet when you look at all the gray areas on this map, you see that a very large proportion of land in the Cascades to Coast region is privately owned. The majority of these private lands are comprised of economically important forests and farms. Therefore, as the CCLC focuses on Western Oregon and Washington, stitching together the landscape matrix in support of habitat connectivity and climate resilience, our attention has been drawn squarely to the importance of supporting conservation stewardship on private lands, both large and small. The CCLC recognizes the strong ecological, cultural, and economic values of working farms and forests in Oregon and Washington. And as a result, we hold as a core principle, keep working lands working. And pulling all of this together, the CCLC's mission is to achieve a connected network of functioning, resilient ecosystems and working lands in the coastal Pacific Northwest that can adapt to climate change and other large-scale stressors using collaborative, science-based strategies that support the cultural, economic, and ecological values of the region. Over the years, the CCLC has convened a number of regional workshops in Oregon and Washington, bringing together a diversity of public and private landowners, land managers, and land advocates, including professional foresters, owners of small forests and farms, government representatives, and conservation advocates. A strong and recurring theme from these workshops has been the inability of small private landowners to access and utilize the diverse and sometimes confusing suite of voluntary incentive programs that are intended specifically to support conservation stewardship. From frank discussions at these workshops, the realization emerged that as a non-regulatory partnership of agencies and other conservation professionals, the CCLC was in an excellent position to compile the many voluntary incentive programs available and make them easily accessible through a single online one-stop shop. And with that, I will stop because that is where the CPE was born. And I am going to pass it over to the owner of the CPE, the leader of the CPE, Rachel Santaolalla.
The Conservation Program Explorer came from those who were wanting to know, wanting to have all the conservation incentive programs in one place to easily browse through the variety of them. So voluntary conservation incentive programs offer land management support to private landowners. Most of the time they offer a stewardship component to them. These programs are designed to help landowners who are eager about practicing stewardship on their lands. They can also help folks to remain compliant with regulations. And the programs can also help educate them and guide them through the journey of being a landowner, producer. And these programs are highly underused, is something that we learned before creating the CPE. And there's a lot of research out there about how these programs are highly effective in terms of the costs, creating partnered stewardship, and the results of the projects from these programs. And so when we created the Conservation Program Explorer tool, we realized that there are so many different types of incentive programs out there. There's like over 50 different types. And we looked at some research about which types of programs were the most effective for private landowners. And that's when we decided to choose programs that offered a financial benefit, free technical assistance, or that offered a marketing and recognition component to them. So these would be things that would directly impact private landowners or producers through their products and helping them manage their land effectively. And we recognize that there's a potential for this tool to evolve over time and include other incentive programs. One thing that I've done with this is grouping different types of financial incentives all under this one umbrella. So when you think about, well, there might be different types of financial incentive programs. Some are cost share, some are grant, some are, 100% paid for if you practice this one thing on your land. So in the future, that can be something maybe that gets teased out, and where we could have a second set of filtering options if that's of interest. So I just wanted to share that we recognize there are many different types of incentive programs, and this is the way that we've grouped them for now. And so I noticed that Adam Pereira is on the call today. And so just, hi, Adam. He started this tool when it was a pilot project, and I took it over in 2021. And since then, this tool has been presented in a lot of places. We started out in Southwest Washington. So there's a lot of outreach that's occurred in Washington online through meetings, and in person through trainings or forest field days, and meeting with some conservation district folks at some of these spaces. Met with NRCS, Washington Department of Natural Resources, and a ton of subgroups within Washington as well. As we come down into Oregon, Dom Harris, who helped build out Western Oregon's database, had presented at the OACD, the Oregon Association of Conservation Districts, their annual meeting last year. He was there in September in Redmond. And I actually just tabled over here at the Ocean Conference, the Oregon Conservation Education Assistance Network's annual, or this is their biannual conference that they have. So we got a lot of great exposure there. And we're looking to continue doing this. It's been really effective over the years as folks begin to see us, and that we're still going and we're still building out. So these are the places we've been in a significant way, and we've partnered with a lot of folks over this time, over these last 3 years. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Science Applications has been a huge supporter of this. They've helped fund the project. The Washington Department of Natural Resources has helped expand the tool in the state of Washington. And we've also had large support on our advisory teams, both in Washington and in Oregon. We have Nate on our call today with Oregon Department of Forestry. And we've just got a ton of groups that have been supportive, however they can be, sharing about this tool, sharing brochures, inviting us to some meetings, trainings, and some landowner outreach events as well. The Northwest Natural Resources Group invited us to be at one of their fireside chats for landowner assistance. So that's kind of a good place for us to be and share this tool, is in areas of landowner assistance. If that speaks to you or what you do in your organization, feel free to get in touch with me. I'd love to set something up with you and continue to share this tool. And over time, as it's been used, folks have said some really great things about it. Ken Bonnie Miller, down here in the right-hand side of the slide, he was really involved with getting this tool going when it was an idea. And whenever I would go to outreach events in Washington, I'd see him in Southwest Washington, and he would come up and speak on behalf of the conservation program Explorer, which was really sweet. And so we've got some folks like that in Oregon as well, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do that type of outreach and garner that type of support, and have some folks speaking on behalf of conservation incentive programs and advocating for their use. And then we've got folks that work in agencies who found this tool extremely useful as well. It's been useful to them for onboarding new staff, for finding contact information for other programs in other counties or different locations, and helping to partner together. How can we not recreate things? There's so many efforts out there to fulfill needs, and some folks are seeing the Conservation Program Explorer as a way to do that without creating something new. And so, like I'd mentioned, this started as a pilot project, and that was sort of our phase one in the Olympic and Southwest regions of Washington. It was a popular tool, it was wanted, so we received funding to build it out for the rest of Washington. And then we're now launching our phase three, Western Oregon, with funding from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, science applications. And we're looking for funding to build out a phase four expansion into Eastern Oregon. And at some point or another, the build out doesn't have to be complete for this, but we'd like to do some more focus group type of workshops and serving our partners. So on one hand is doing some workshops to make sure that the tool is still working well for people, and that the user interface is working for them, that things are obvious and they're able to find what they need, that what they want in a one-stop shop tool is there. And so that's one type of continued outreach we'd like to do with private landowners, and also the folks that work with them, the boots on the ground, making sure that this tool works for them as well. And then in the future, we'd like to support in focus groups, whether that be focusing on conservation priorities, specific geographies, or specific groups of landowners, and rallying people together around this tool, using it as a convening tool. So if any of that speaks to you, you can let me know. And I'm gonna stop sharing really quick and head over into the website itself. Should just give me a moment here. Yeah.
Hey, Rachel. We just have a few people who would like it if you spoke up just a little bit.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay, so this is our homepage to our website. And there are two different ways you can access the tool from here. One is you can scroll down, learn a little bit about why we built the tool, who it's for, and can click this email or button to email me. You can click this button to start. And if you'd like to share the brochure, you can download it here. The other way to access the tool is to come up to the top right menu, and under Resources, you can click on Conservation Program Explorer. And then so you can select Oregon. And now we've got Western Oregon available. If you've been coming to the tool, you'll have seen that it said Northwest Oregon is available. Well, now all of Western Oregon is available. And so folks can select their region. We'll select the North Central region. And this is starting to filter down all of the conservation center programs in the database itself. My internet's a little slow, so thank you for bearing with me as the page loads. So here we are. The sort of meat and potatoes of the tools right here in this drop-down menu. I liken this to like online shopping. You can search for what you'd like. And so we'll say we're looking for a program in Clackamas, and that you can search for a program for agricultural land or forest land, or if you're looking for a program for both, you can just leave this blank and it'll show both. But for the sake of this demo, we'll just select forest. And then, like I said before, we grouped the incentive programs into three categories: financial, free technical assistance, or marketing and recognition program. Financial is a pretty popular choice. And you can see as I'm selecting these drop downs that the number of programs is automatically updating right down here. And then if folks have a riparian corridor or stream or river, something like water focused on their property, they can search for a water focused program by selecting yes. And you'll see that that just updated it to 18 programs. And so with that criteria, this is the list of programs we get. And you can just read a little snippet about each one. And so folks can get an idea for the program itself. And then they can go into, let's see, let's go for the access and habitat grants. So then they can come in, and what's first presented is the information that they just read about. And then they can get the full program description, the eligibility requirements here, and the financial benefit. So oftentimes the financial benefits vary, depends on the project, it depends on so many different things. So this can oftentimes just say, you know, it varies, please contact the program manager to learn more. But we try to give as much transparent information as possible. And then, of course, the contact information, the person, their phone number, and then we've got a link to the full program details. Let's see, I'm going to try and do this because Zoom's like in my, you can't see everything on your, oh gosh. Oh, it's not letting me, sorry, I'm like trying to change between tabs now. Let me move anything on my screen. Good, there we go. Okay, so you can go select that button and it'll take you to the full program's website. And then I'm gonna come back here. And we've also got this local service button. So several programs are a bit wider where they address the whole state, but maybe the local representative is specific to their location. So wanting to find your farm service agency rep or your USDA rural development representative, or finding your forester through ODF. All of those different sort of groups, those are different websites, right, where you can go and select your county. So that's what this local service button is about. It just draws them back to either the homepage of the organization or that other website, like the Farm Service Agency, USDA Rural Development, or what have you, so that they can find their local level contact for that program. And then I want to share with you on the right side here, we've got this supporting organizations. And I did bring this up ahead of time because this was taking a while to load. So folks can come here to see who their supporting organizations are. These are groups that are going to support them through the process of getting enrolled in conservation incentive programs. They're going to help create a stewardship plan and all kinds of other things like that. So folks can select their state, the county, and the type of land use too, if they're looking for a specific group to help them. I just want to see the forest land support organizations. And so we've got this nice long list. And if you think you should be here and you're not, please let me know. I did my best to find all the supporting organizations out there. And we've got all the conservation districts in here. And several other groups, EcoTrust, Family Forest Research Center. So it's a pretty inclusive of all the groups that are there and available to help support private lands in their land management and this whole the whole journey of being involved in conservation incentive programs. This second tile here, landscape characteristics. This is a link to the other tool that the Cascades to Coast Landscape Collaborative houses. It is called the Coastal Northwest Landscape Connectivity Mapper tool. It's a very long name, but it is also very specific. So if you're interested in looking at habitat connectivity on a coarse scale, I suggest looking at it. If you're a large landowner, you might be interested in seeing how your land fits into the surrounding context. I won't go into it now, but you feel free to do that on your own. And then, of course, if there's anything that you see in this tool that needs to be changed or that's missing or that maybe isn't applicable or anything that you've got, any feedback, feel free to email me using this link here. And if you'd be interested in taking our survey, I would like to hear what you think. So you can take that there as well. Let's see. How are we doing on time? We're okay. Let's go back and do another example. So we're back here to our drop downs. And I want to also share that we have this keyword search bar. So what you can do here is, let's just say I'm looking for a carbon program because I have agricultural land and forest land. And well, maybe you're a contractor working with both and you serve various counties. So you could come in here and just say, I'm looking for a carbon-based program. And you'll see that we don't have a whole lot in here, but we do have Forest Carbon Works, and I thought I had put in other ones, so I'll have to look at this a little closer. But this might pick up some other things that, like this enhancement of survival permits. It might say something along the lines of carbon. It's just the way that the tool works on the back end and the way it's searching for words. So let's try something else. Let's try fencing. And then you have to actually click search because pressing the enter key does not work. And so, yeah, we're seeing a lot of projects coming up that help with fencing and that would support that. A lot of loans out there, things for helping water quality. And then if you're like, okay, now I want to search something else, but I just kind of need to reset my search, you can click that button there, reset the search. And that is, in a nutshell, is how the tool works. So I want to give some more time for other folks to request certain things if you'd like me to demo something specific. But we'll do that in a little bit. So I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to hear a few words from Nate Agelsoff.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name, again, is Nate Eccleshoff, and I work for the Oregon Department of Forestry, or ODF, in the department's small forest landowner office. And one of the high-level goals of the small forest landowner office here with the department is to assist forest landowners in accomplishing the objectives that they have for their property and to just generally be successful in their forest management. And so I might summarize the business of our work unit as primarily being in two parts. The first is in managing an assortment of grants and the associated incentive programs that are in our portfolio. And the second is providing support to what we often refer to as our program delivery folks, which are the field foresters located in the various field offices around the state. I feel very fortunate that I was allowed to serve on the advisory group for this project and to also see the expansion of the Conservation Program Explorer tool into the state of Oregon. I believe there's tremendous benefit in having a comprehensive collection of the wide variety of programs available, and I can tell you honestly that I had my eyes open and learned a few things in the process that and have a better understanding of the suite of opportunity that's offered and administered by the various organizations and agencies and partnerships. I can see this tool being an aid in elevating the awareness of the forest landowner community, specifically even for the programs that ODF implements. The Department of Forestry provides summary program information and that kind of detail on our agency website, but recognize also that some would need to know to go where to look for it in the first place. So, this can certainly be another way to get that information to interested people. I can also see how this tool might serve as a resource to our department field staff in their delivery of technical and landowner assistance, and facilitate some connections with known interests and needs. One of the core business functions of the Department of Forestry is the administration of our Oregon's Forest Practices Act. And often when it comes to working with the smaller or non-industrial family forest landowners, that can also entail helping them in navigating the regulatory requirements that apply to their operation or conservation practice. But I think it's important to also recognize that success in this technical assistance arena involves much more than just compliance, and also include other overcoming other barriers to action. And in the most basic sense, the department would encourage active forest management, recognizing it's a means to achieve more resilient stand conditions on the landscape. And in many instances, conservation incentive programs provide that means to a landowner to take a given management action. And while ODF has certainly has an assortment of different grant and cost share opportunities as tools in the toolbox, it's a reality that they're not always the best fit for every person or situation. And I think with with elevated knowledge and awareness of the host of programs available, it seems that ODF staff and forest landowners alike could be just that much more likely to get connected with the opportunities that are out there. And I'll hang on here for any questions that might get directed my way, but thanks for giving me the time.
Great. Thank you, Nate. And thank you, Rachel. Yeah. Rachel, did you have an interest in following up, or should we go to questions? There would seem to be.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's go to questions first, and if folks need another demo, you can put it in there as well. Put it in the Q&A.
Okay, I'm just going to leave us here on cameras, and Caitlin, if you want to come on, and folks watching, if you have questions that you haven't entered in the Q&A, please do so. We're all standing by to interact. Can't wait to hear from you.
We do have a few questions in the chat, or it's actually in the Q&A, but just so everyone knows, the chat is also working now, so you can put them in either. But we'll start with Nancy Taylor's question. How will the CPE tool be updated?
So currently our plans for updating the Conservation Program Explorer are to reach out at least once a year to all of the collected programs, and just emailing, calling, and updating that way. And I've learned a lot over the years about how all of these programs work. I don't know everything, but what I have learned is that at the end of the fiscal year, things change, and sometimes it takes a while after that. So I'm finding what the right period of time is to do that check-in. And so I'm thinking about August every year or so seems to be a good time to contact folks. I'm open to feedback if maybe there are a series of conversations about when is a good time to check in with different agencies and organizations. But yeah, that's the goal, is once a year. And in the 3 years that we've been doing this, it's been dependent on funding and capacity. So we're searching and looking at grants and things like that, but we're also open if you have any suggestions. And that's one way. Another way, potentially, is for program managers or agencies to have a login on our website. It's just an idea right now, and that could be a way for me to just check in with them and say, hey, it's that time of year, can you please log in and make your changes? So like I mentioned, right now the plan is to continue to do outreach at least once a year, funding dependent, and conducting those updates. And then I think a more sustainable thing in the future would be to have more of a shared ownership of the tool in that sense.
Great. Thanks so much for that answer, Rachel. I'm going to move into, there's a few questions in the Q&A, but I'm going to try and bin a few of them that have to do with you going in and showing some folks some things on the website. So
Okay.
let's see. Has the development of the habitat connectivity tool been supported by the Wild Farm Alliance? This person says, I know they have programs throughout California and Oregon focused specifically on habitat connectivity for birds and wildlife. So this is a question about the other tool that the CCLC has.
Do you want to answer that one?
No, go ahead.
Oh, not to my knowledge. So I don't know if you know something different about that, Anne, but I'm now thinking, gee, I hope I have their programs for Oregon on our tool. So thank you. By the way, there are almost 700 programs in our database, so don't quiz me too much. Did you have anything to add to that, Anne?
No.
Okay.
Great. Thanks. Okay, well, back to the CPE. So one question is, are there eligibility filters on these incentive listings?
Right now, we don't have filters for eligibility. It's just the drop downs that I shared. And but I love hearing this. I think it's great. I'm collecting that as an idea of a way to evolve the tool for future use. So thank you for that idea. I think that would be great.
Yeah, it could be a really good idea. Thank you for that. Another question is, can we review the different program benefits in the drop down?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question entirely. Like, I'm curious. Are you curious about the benefits types that we chose, or if it's about like maybe seeing all the programs under like a certain benefit?
Yeah, this person, if you want to clarify in the chat box or in the Q&A, feel free. This person also asked, they said benefit categories.
Benefit categories. So let me just. Well, we have I'm still not understanding. I'm sorry.
Well, we have financial and
Yeah.
and is that the categories we're talking about? We could review those. Financial, technical.
Yeah, we have programs that give a financial benefit. So a cost share, a grant, or covering the cost of the program. And then we have the free technical assistance, and then the marketing and recognition component. So I think, is this the same person? Is it Monique? Should put it into the chat? No, different.
No, different person.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I can just expand a little bit more about those, and Nate, feel free to chime in too. You know a lot about these things as well. So there are different types of financial assistance. Technical assistance is something where like a person will come out to your land and help you understand what's going on with it and maybe what you might want to do or hear what you're looking to do and give you some guidance and education on that. And then the marketing or recognition component would be something like there's the transition to organic program, which it will help a producer transition to producing organically and getting that certification to enhance their product on the market. So that's what I have to say about it. Would you want to add anything, Nate?
I think you did just fine. The way I heard the question, if it helps and if I'm not wrong, is maybe also like around resource benefit. So I mean, there's like the individual benefit, which would be like technical assistance, financial assistance, so forth. And then I think if there was any, the way I heard it was like if there's any way to tease out some additional detail, like for conservation of a specific species, water quality, um, reducing risk from fire, these sorts of things. I think that's maybe what that was getting at.
Well, thanks for those answers.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to encourage the person who's asking these questions to feel free to ask more in the chat function so that everybody can see. So if you want to explain yourself a little bit more, or Rachel's a fantastic resource and she's always, I think, happy to be reached out to. So we can put her information in the chat as well. So you can ask some more specific questions to her if you need to. I do want to make sure I can get to some of these other questions. So we have one question that's asking about the timeline and the process for expanding to the remaining regions in Oregon.
I would say this largely depends on funding opportunities for us. Right now, I'll share a little tidbit of info that I've been working with an intern from Western Washington University. So she got the project started, and she's been learning a lot and doing a great job. And so it's been started, but we still have a lot to do. And if we got funding tomorrow, I'd say we could have it done in maybe 3 to 6 months. There's not a whole lot to build out considering that we've already done all the state and national level programs and found those contacts. So it's mostly a matter of finding the local level contacts and having those communications. So stay tuned and sign up for our newsletter that you can find on our website, because we will give out those kind of updates of, we're doing this now, we've done it. And that's a great way to stay in touch. And we do not send out newsletters all the time. It's just a few a year, so don't feel intimidated.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so the next question. You're getting some kudos, Rachel, great job. Do you know if the tool is most often being accessed by service providers, landowners, or landowners and providers together?
I don't have access to that granular information about who exactly it is, but I can see after I do a certain outreach event, like if I do a training with, like last year or 2 years ago, COVID time warp. It's like I went to a DNR service forestry training and in Washington, and I could see that in our analytics that the use of the website increased, and so that's going to be the service providers. And I can also see after a landowner outreach event like a forest field day or something, what the increase is over time. And I would like to look at the next week and the next month. The outreach events do help to get people visiting the website. Like, there's different ways of learning about something. You see it, you hear it, you experience it. And so it's great to get people on it, to just have them remember it. But yeah, I wish that we could see a little bit more specific information. Unfortunately, right now, we can't. I can see where our site visitors are from geographically, but that's about it. It's like county based. That's as fine of a scale as I can see those details at.
I'd like to say something, which is I also don't have those data about who's actually coming to the tool, but I know from a larger strategic point of view that when we were engaging with landowners in our regional meetings, that our focus all was on landowners themselves, and that's where it remains ultimately, absolutely no question. But we realized that in order to really fully scale this tool, that our partners, landowner supporters, so like Nate and like so many staff, mostly in both public and private agencies and entities, they're on the ground in ways that we don't have the capacity to be, and so we've been working with them. And furthermore, it's given that we are conveners, it's really offered us an opportunity to have kind of a catalyst to bring landowner supporter groups together in so far in our advisory groups, but it's also a vision we have to work, frankly, at both levels, to convene and support. I mean, if you're going to work at a landscape scale, you really have to think about in terms of partners and aligned desired outcomes. So we're thinking along both levels.
Great answer. Thanks for that, Anne. We've got one more question. How broadly is the conservation tool Explorer, the CPE, being advertised to landowners? So this is kind of that along those same lines of questioning. And then what avenues are being utilized to advertise to landowners?
Okay. So we're still new coming into Oregon. We're still creating some partnerships. We've created some connection, but we're still in that process of getting in touch with folks around, where are you going to be at that you're reaching your landowner community, and can we join you? So again, if you'd like to support us in that way, or if you can, let me know. And that's one. Two is that reaching out to what I refer to as the landowner support network, which is everybody who's working on the ground with private landowners, and trying to connect with them. Again, kind of echoing what Anne just mentioned, that you all are on the ground doing that work already. So having this tool in your back pocket as a resource when you're helping a private landowner to say, okay, maybe we didn't have the program for you, but you can use this tool, or hey, there's this awesome tool out there. If you want to see everything that's available to you, you can go there. And so that's another way that I've been communicating with folks on our advisory teams in both states, letting them know that the tool can be used that way, and it would be helpful to leverage their time that's already spent with private landowners. And then in Washington, I've gone to Washington State University Extension of Forestry events. And that's one way that I've had direct contact with private landowners. Hoping to do that in Oregon as well. I have seen also, I'm familiar with Oregon Small Woodlands Association, Oregon Tree Farms system, and just also the equivalents in Washington as well. So going through those groups too, and like I mentioned earlier, Northwest Natural Resources Group and their fireside chats that are for private landowners. So using those avenues of folks that are already working with them on the ground, and that are having these sort of meeting spaces specifically, because we've got conservation district folks working on the ground, and our meeting space with them was going to the OACD annual meeting, and then being here at the Ocean Conference. And so those ways, but we're not like sending out mailers to folks individually or anything like that. We don't have capacity for that, and that's not really our role, I don't think. I think we want to remain neutral. And then can you repeat the second question, please? Oh,
And I'm muted. I think you answered both the
Okay.
questions. It was really of how is it being advertised and what avenues are being utilized. So
Oh yeah. I wanted to add, thank you, Caitlin. I wanted to add that we do have a LinkedIn account, and we have a Twitter account, um, and then we do have a YouTube. We thought about maybe making a Facebook, but I'm not sure yet that that's something we want to do, because usually with social media stuff, you want to have an ongoing presence. And when we look at our capacity and the things that we're trying to do, it's just, we're not sure what the sort of return on investment is there. So, but we do recognize that there's a demographic of landowners that might heavily use Facebook, and they might receive information that way. So this is something that we're it's an ongoing kind of introspection into what's the best way to reach folks. But for now, we're just we're leaning on our partners.
Yeah, I just want to add that that we are new. We're like in a way, like a startup, and we're sort of taking a lean startup approach, namely what is working. Work from the center out, and so that's why your feedback is so important to us. Is for that very reason, because we have so much interest and excitement surrounding what it could be, and we are on the verge of acquiring more capacity, but it's important at this relatively early stage to direct it well. That's why your input is so important. And on that note, I'm not stopping the Q&A, but I want to put up I want to share my screen. Try this. I wanted the questions to be up there, and also our information. And if there's more questions, please keep them coming.
So if you do have answers to these questions that are on the screen, feel free to, I think, put your answers in the chat, but also I know that Rachel and Anne are really wanting your feedback. So I think that also, I'm speaking for you both, that if you are open to emailing them or getting a hold of them in any other way, they really want to hear from you. So.
Certainly. And for folks that watch the webinar recording, your voice counts, so please feel free to email me with your answers to these questions. I'd really like to know how to make this tool the most efficient for you all that are using it. And I'm curious to know where you go to learn about your voluntary incentive programs. And yeah, definitely if you're interested in working together in a workshop in your region, we'd love to work with you. So please let us know.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us, and I hope you learned something. And most importantly, I hope this is the beginning of future engagement. And the way that works is we hear from you. Feel free to join our newsletter, visit our website, and definitely check out the CPE program online. And I hope that this is part of the next wave of supporting landowners in Oregon and Washington. And thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Nate. And thank you, Caitlin.